Life isn't easy for the big fossil fuel polluters. I mean, sure, you enjoy historic profits and preferential treatment from the world's governments, but it seems as though people don't like you as much as they used to. Take a look at this. It's a leaked BP document from 2020 where the oil and gas giant pondered these three questions. One, how do we demonstrate that we get it in a more meaningful, active, and inclusive way that resonates with society? Two, what is meaningful empathy in a world where we're seen as one of the bad guys? And three, can you lead and change perceptions when we're seen as being part of the problem, not the future solution? We get it. It literally sounds like that bit in Succession when Shiv Roy is trying to cover up a sexual abuse scandal in her company, and she's like, we get it. Hilarious, beyond parody. So, what do you do if you're Shell or BP and you're worried that your brand is being associated with, I don't know, murdering the planet to shore up shareholder profit? Easy. You get the influencers on board. An investigation by DSMOG found that over the past 6 years, Shell, BP, and ExxonMobil have been pouring millions of dollars into producing relatable and influencer led content. The investigation is also published by Novara, and it says this: fossil fuel companies have deep reserves to deploy on digital advertising. While Shell last year advertised for a new staff member to manage its TikTok campaigns, oil and gas super major ExxonMobil has been the highest advertising spender on Facebook and Instagram in the last 5 years, shelling out $23.1 million since June 2018. The total combined following of all the influencers who have been paid for fossil fuel partnerships since 2017 in posts analysed by DSMOG is nearly 60 million. So, what kind of content does $60 million get you? It gets you Colin Furze shouting at his 12.5 million YouTube subscribers about all of your greenwashing efforts.
Way up, Internet. So today I'm going to be taking on a renewable energy project, but there is a reason why I'm doing this. Now, every year Shell run what's called their Eco Marathon. Now, this is a competition for university students and clever people alike, and they set various challenges, like trying to get cars to run from London to Rome just using a litre of fuel. But this is 2020, you ain't running no events this year, are you? But they've not just given up, they've come up with a new event called Pitch the Future, which is where old Furze comes in, because it's an online event, and I'm hosting it.
Oh my God, that guy's enthusiasm could literally kill me. Look, not all of Colin's fans were best pleased with his fossil fuel SponCon, however. Here's a comment from one of his followers on Facebook. What the hell, Furze? Shell is the worst company in the world, and it's not eco, never was, never be. That's putting the good face on the bad game. Furze replied with this. Hi, I know there are strong feelings on Shell, and I'm not here to represent their whole business, just the Eco Marathon and the teams that have entered. Today, I've been hosting the pitches, and there's some fantastic ideas which the teams retain the IP for. So if the competition helps bring some of these ideas and products to the market, that's a good thing. I know that there are strong feelings on Shell. Like, what a vapid response. It's not that Shell have done something controversial. They've not done a Netflix special with some potentially offensive jokes. We're talking about one of the world's biggest polluters. And I think that this exchange sort of tells you why the influencer strategy is so successful. Instead of people holding a corporation responsible, they're made to feel like if they're upset, they'd be yelling at a single likable individual. So it's a win-win. Shell gets to hide behind your persona, and you get a load of oil money to update your home studio or whatever. As content strategies go, it appears to have been a very successful one. As World Media Group acknowledged, the success of the campaign was astounding, generating 127 million views and nearly 1 billion impressions. Essence Mediacom boasted that Shell-branded content actually outperformed Furze's own organic content benchmarks, achieving 59% more interactions than the norm for posts on Colin's own channels. So it was a win for Shell and a win for Furze, but I guess a loss for the planet overall. That piece was published this week on NovaraMedia.com, and earlier today I spoke to its author Sam Bright.
I guess when you've got that much money to throw around, you might as well spend a bit of it on PR. I think we quoted in the piece that Exxon had spent $23 million on Facebook ads over the past 5 years. And that sounds like a humongous amount of money to most ordinary businesses or people. But to them, that's pocket change. Part of it as well is that the climate movement is being successful in a lot of its aims, in that it is generating a backlash against these companies that's being particularly accentuated during the cost of living crisis. They're panicking a bit, to be honest with you. I think that they see that the winds of change are blowing against fossil fuel giants, that politicians and activists are increasingly talking about the transition to sustainable fuels. And they want to make sure that they maintain those astronomical profits that they've been so used to, and particularly used to over the past year or so.
Do you have any sense what a YouTuber like Colin Furze could get for doing a piece of sponsored content? Like, is it something that Novara Media should be looking into? Novara Live, sponsored by Shell.
So the really interesting thing about the course of this investigation was that we sort of approached a lot of these influencers a month or two ago to ask them in a very general, open way, we're going to be writing about this. Do you want to have a chat off the record, just to explain your point of view, and we can explain ours in terms of why we want to focus on this, why we think it's a questionable practice. And also to that key question, to figure out how much they get paid. I think one or two gave us 10-minute chats. But most were actually unapologetic about promoting this content. And I think that probably speaks to the very precise way that the likes of Shell and BP have targeted the sorts of people who would be inclined to promote their activity, and would, buy into their whole narrative, which tends to revolve, as the piece says, around green innovation, trying to argue the case that fossil fuel giants are actually helping towards the green transition, which is actually massively out of kilter with what they're investing in.
One of the things that we've seen in other industries like fast fashion is that sometimes when influencers get invited to do a piece of propaganda, really, a whitewashing piece of content, that there can be a bit of a backlash. We saw that when Shein invited some TikTokers to China to have a look around their information center. There was actually a lot of criticism online. Did you ever get a sense that there was a kind of backlash or critical response to this content, or did people just sort of accept it at face value?
Out of the maybe 120, 150 examples of influencers that we maybe found half a dozen where I'd say there was significant backlash to their posts. Like, we're talking maybe 20 responses on a popular post, saying, why are you working with these companies? So actually the overwhelming majority, and this really did shock me actually, that there is a great amount of climate consciousness now in the UK and in America, where a lot of the ads were. But that doesn't seem to have seeped through to all aspects of society. And again, I think this is probably quite telling in terms of the sort of people that Shell targeted. So we saw the fact that these individuals tended to be on the sort of peripheries of environmentalism, the sort of people who liked to state their environmental credentials, liked to be quite positive about the climate movement and the need to transition to green energy. But actually, it seems as though they don't have that much environmental substance to them, because they were willing to promote these fossil fuel firms. And that, it seems to have converted in terms of the sort of followers that these people are attracting to their accounts, which the likes of Shell and BP probably see as fertile territory, the sort of soft, disengaged body of individuals in society who they can turn towards their cause, because they're not quite so rooted in the green agenda as more activist parts of society are.
What were the demographics that were being targeted here in terms of the audience? So with Shein, it kind of blows up in their face because they're targeting very socially conscious Zoomers who weren't going to swallow it, even if they do buy fast fashion. But who were the target audience here? Who were Shell and BP trying to reach?
It's interesting, actually. So we found a web page from Edelman, which is one of Shell's principal PR agencies. It was boasting about a campaign that it had run with an explorer and testing biofuels in the North and South Poles. And it explicitly stated that it wanted the campaign to target millennials. And we saw this with leaked documents from BP in 2020 as well, is that they are coming after young people. Which surprised me, actually. I thought, probably like you, that there would just be no way of converting that demographic to be sympathetic towards these companies, but either through ignorance or blind optimism or the sheer amounts of money that these companies are willing to throw at this PR project, yeah, they think that they can convert young people to the cause. Maybe not Gen Zers, but millennials, they're certainly seeing as a core potential route of support for them.